thank you for your time. I am loving your new book. It is
good.
amazing. Well done. Congratulations. And it's a really powerful tool. So I think
Yeah.
it'd be nice to start off for people that don't know you and your journey. How did you start your journey on this path? And then how did
Yeah.
that lead and evolve into effortless mindfulness?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think if as we all look back, I know for me, um, I can find times early in childhood where certain things kind of opened up for me, and I didn't know what to make of them back then, but slowly, as I kind of followed my intuition, uh, different things began to appear in my life, fortunately, and little doors open, little glimpses, little curiosities. So one story is that I was 14 years old, and I have some ADD and dyslexia. So I knew I was smart, but I would have a hard time writing things down or staying concentrated in school. But when I would be involved with music or sports, I would find a way to kind of get into a flow and be very much here and now, and kind of feel like, well, this is easy, this is great, this is fun, this is all. Other people are finding it more complex, but I'm kind of doing it well. I heard a sportscaster say at that time, he's got eyes in the back of his head, and I thought, oh, eyes in the back of my head. Let me see if I can do that. I kind of know what he means. And I tried it, using my eyes, but then I was like, no, that's not it. And I just literally opened my awareness around, and I went, oh yeah, it's like like riding a bicycle, or like when you're, just kind of flying around on a bike. And then I opened it up further, and it just kept going around. And then it was like this panoramic awareness feeling, not like I was seeing literally, but then I just dropped into my body, and I felt like, oh, that's so cool. I can intentionally do that. And then I went off and started playing some sports that way, and would do that as a preparation. And one day, as a sophomore in high school, one of the seniors on the team said, hey kid, I hear what you're talking about, to your friends, check this book out. And it was Zen and the Art of Archery. And so I thought, wow, people are really doing this all around the world, and it's valuable, and it's, part of this kind of meditation or wisdom tradition, or, I'm going to find out what this is about, because this is a lot of fun. So that was kind of how I, kind of find one of my first kind of ways of following a trailhead.
Mm. Wonderful. And can you please speak about the difference in your perspective of deliberate mindfulness and effortless mindfulness?
Sure. Yeah. So traditionally, particularly in traditions like Tibetan Buddhism, deliberate mindfulness is kind of the first initial practices of concentration, one-pointed focus, like becoming aware of your breath, and then becoming aware of the contents of your consciousness, your thoughts, feelings, and sensations. And very simply, just to start, effortless mindfulness, instead of focusing and concentrating, and instead of being aware of the contents of consciousness, you merely open awareness to look through the meditator to see who's behind the camera, or what's the context in which the content is arising. So you just simply rest back, or look back, or feel backwards to open into this field of awareness that then is interconnected with everything that's coming and going.
I recall you speaking of your first experience, I think, with Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche. And
Yes.
before that, you were relying upon really long duration for your seated meditation. And then you had a really peak experience in which you could feel the profound mystical experience.
Yeah,
in just moments. And was
that's
that,
right.
if I'm correct, a profound experience that started to shift your perception of what a true practice is, that it doesn't actually have to be that long? It can be a direct glimpse?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I had done some 5-day retreats, 10-day retreats, 21-day retreats as part of a fellowship in Sri Lanka, and, really got great benefits. So, kind of to say right off that, I value deliberate mindfulness, and effortless mindfulness can be both the next stage of mindfulness, and it can also be, for those who have a hard time concentrating, a doorway that you can begin with. And yeah, so for me, after doing these longer retreats, I, felt the benefits. I felt like, oh, wow, this is what this is about. And I'm enjoying this. And then I went up and ended up actually meeting the Dalai Lama in Dharamsala in India. And he had just come back from teaching on this direct path tradition of Dzogchen for the first time in his life in France. And he was giving a talk to a group of people who were there. And I put my hand up and said, this is great. Who should I go study with? And he said, Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche in Nepal. So changed all my plans and off I went. And then I sat there, climbed up this little mountain to this hut he lived in, a kind of a small house, Nagi Gompa, and gave about a 20-minute, half-hour talk to kind of introduce, and then gave a pointer. And within 3 minutes, I felt the same way I did at the end of a long, long retreat. And so, except my eyes were open, I felt like I was laughing and more in touch with my emotions and more connected to the nature and other people in the room. So it wasn't just a calm, it was kind of a connection and a joy, kind of a bubbling joy, and a kind of soft love, like a unconditional love. Everything felt so safe and soft. Um, and so immediately I felt like, okay, whatever this is, I'm interested. Like something's here that can be accessed that immediately. Wow.
Beautiful. And I love in your latest book the glimpses. Not only is it just a conceptual reading experience, which is all good, but the regular glimpses and pointing to that are really profound. And
Mm-hmm.
it kind of skips the kind of guided meditations many of us are used to and the visualizations and just kind of cut straight to the chase again
Yes.
and again, which is, for me, it feels like a kind of like a training, like a toning up of this capacity. What do you call it? To train to remain, which I
Yes,
like.
that's right.
And so I think it'd be nice during this conversation every now and then if you could
Sure.
do one of those glimpses to really help people
Yeah.
not just think about it and not just listen to it, but directly experience it. So how about a
Yeah.
glimpse into effortless mindfulness, straight to the point?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the reason to write the book is, in some ways it's, the writing a book about something that can't be written about. That was my project. And
Uh-huh.
I kept realizing, oh no, here I go. What am I doing? and then and then I thought, okay, so just say enough words to set it up, to give a little of the map or the menu, and then go for the food. So what is it, what is it not? Where are you looking? What's looking? What are you not looking for? And then, what's the way of letting go? What are you letting go into? So, the very simple premise that kind of will serve for these other glimpses that we can do is that, what's in the way? If this natural capacity of awakening is this close, if it's available to us, then why aren't we recognizing it more easily, more often? And so, in some ways, it's not a big, uh, you know, tremendous rock to roll up a hill. It's literally a pattern of consciousness, a kind of constellation of thoughts going to thoughts, and then, you know, looking to the body and emotions and creating a thinker. So we end up with this feeling, I think, therefore I am, which gets reinforced by our culture and conditioning. But it literally feels so, you know, I have people kind of start to feel, well, where are you hearing from? Where are you looking from? Like literally, don't just take that for granted as if it's kind of normal, but start not to look at your breath or look at a thought, but really look at the looker. Feel and really feel the looker. Like, and it tends to feel like it's between our ears looking out of our eyes.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there, there's some vague sense of a pattern of density that is even looking down at our breath. Where is it looking from? Oh, it's looking from the middle of my head at my breath. Oh, well, then maybe that's more interesting. So this patterning is made of thought and becomes the kind of functional I or functional ego. And ultimately, it's helpful as a function. It's just simply a limited identity. So if we can just have it relax, not kill the ego, not defeat the ego, not suppress it, not stop thoughts, but literally just find that which is greater than it, that which is more subtle, that which is more essential, and then include everything, then all of a sudden there's nothing to oppose and everything's kind of included from a bigger capacity that we've been missing.
And that's a huge relief right there. I mean,
Yeah.
It's very common for the seeker to try every method possible to do exactly that, to kill the ego,
That's it.
to destroy all thought and emotionality, and to kind of just transcend the human experience. And
Exactly.
and I've done that as well, you know, and it can feel good. Like if you can get on a kind of roll with it and you can feel at peace and calm, like you said. But for me, it seems like it lacks a lot of functionality with the human experience, and could be, I think, which is what you've talked about as well, it could be one of the reasons why so many seekers and spiritual leaders have been very awake and very able to access wisdom and transcendental states, but then have been quite childish and dysfunctional in terms of embodied sexuality and just relationships and whatnot. So this seems very, very empowering, very integrative and embodied, to not just experience it with our eyes closed, but in the moment. And that's what I'm really loving about it, is not only can we tune into it with a formalized practice, but then learn to orient our attention from that space of awake awareness in relationship with the world, which I love. I'm all about that.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, that's so well said. And from experience, that feeling that we're not stopping halfway at transcendence, that there's a reason to transcend and include, to discover infinity, and then to realize we're living in a finite, interconnected world, that there's, you know, an awareness that's, you know, beyond our personality, but then it's like feeling like we're living in a cloud, and then we discover the sky, but then the sky is within the cloud, or the ocean is arising as a wave. And so there's no reason in some ways why we don't have both. And so that embodied, interconnected. So the idea is to live a fully intimate human life, you know, a life that's involved in this realm that we're born into, in this precious birth, from an awake consciousness. So it's going to be messy, but it's also going to be juicy. You know, it's not going to be bland. But then when you really discover the essential, subtle dimension, and then the bliss of safety and okayness and well-being, this kind of grounded being, then there's such capacity to even be with traumatic feelings and being triggered, and with things that go well and don't go well, and you don't feel caught or as if you need the good things and have to push away the difficult days, because you found the ground of being, which is awake and kind of unborn and imperturbable and doesn't come and go, and yet it recognizes what comes and goes, and pleasure and pain, and that all that can be embraced. And that's the real non-dual awakening of both transcendent and relative reality. So that all that to say that the spiritual ego, which is just like the highest form of the smartest little pattern within our heads looking out, is just it's made of thought, going to emotion, going to subject and object, and it's trying to solve the problem of self, like you said. It's like you say, like we say, I tried that. I tried, to stop my thoughts. I tried to kill my ego. Who tried to kill it? Well, the ego tried to kill it itself. It tried to, it's this little pattern of trying to solve this problem, or there's different parts in there. But if once you realize that, and you can relax the problem solver for a moment, you might be able to look with awareness and feel what's here. If you don't orient to thought and don't go to sleep, but you just literally feel. So that's the first glimpse exercise, is literally, for those who are listening, as simple as this inquiry sounds, just give it a minute or two. And even if you do it, now and try it again later, you can listen to the recording. Just simply ask yourself this inquiry: what's here now when there's no problem to solve? And just understand it, and then let your awareness kind of drop and open and feel.
What's here now?
Yeah. So what would you say? What's the feeling of what's here?
Again, indescribable, but
Yeah.
just an innate peacefulness, an innate wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Everything we're looking for is right here, and
Yeah.
it very quickly shines a light of what's real, and then
Yes.
all the kind of relative truths. It just feels very balanced. So
Yes.
rather than
Yeah.
the common experience when one gets into an experience of ultimacy, is then a kind of belittling of all the relative truths,
That's right.
like
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
not real, fuck it,
Yeah.
it's not real.
That's right.
But this feels very balanced of
Yeah.
I'm in touch with what's real,
Yeah.
but all the relative truths are cool too. And
Yeah.
they're great, and they're
There's
just
no
as important.
problem.
No problem,
Yeah.
no problem.
Yeah. No
And
problem. Yeah.
it just feels very, very balanced, and the kind of the middle way. It kind of illuminates the
Yeah.
middle way very quickly.
Yes.
That's what I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah. So the key is on a glimpse is, rather than kind of trying to do that, we're kind of untrying or untying the knot.
Uh-huh.
And to get not like the words that you say, or like a beautiful poem, or just kind of an admonition, well, just be in the moment, or just don't, just try to accept everything as it is, or just, and then you end up kind of the small mini me, the ego co-ops those. Oh, try to be in the moment. Okay, just relax. Oh, that feels good. But there's a little, and this one we're literally just decentering and opening, not knowing what's here, to feel what's here, and what's here is already accepting everything as it is. So we're not trying to accept everything as it is. We're letting go, but we're knowing what we're letting go of, and then we're discovering what is here that we've let go into, and then being aware from there. Oh yeah. And that, just those little instructions to simplify the whole project into not a meditation state, but literally untie the knot of the obscuration and then return to the natural condition. And then it's not a meditation state. Other states come and go. It's kind of the stateless state. And so that's that's kind of the core of effortless mindfulness, is this just these fine-tuning feeling of returning to the feeling of being, and then from being, letting sensation, thought, and action and activity and relational creativity start to be done from there. And then you lose it, and then no big surprise. You just recognize that you're caught back in the other operating system, and just return in a small glimpse, and then try to bring it almost immediately, which is the unusual thing, immediately into activity. If you like, you can also sit there for as long as you like or not do anything, but to just kind of rewire the whole human system by shifting into who you are, and then starting to say something imperfectly or walk or talk, and then lose it, and then no big surprise, just re-recognize, and it's that process that's almost a direct way that you do in the midst of a busy life. I do it on the subways in New York City, and it's beautiful. Everything's
I love practicing it in busy situations. I mean, my home base is in Perth, which is much quieter than New York City, much quieter than Delhi. But when I'm in those busy places, I love practicing. For me, it's more challenging, but it's a great way of integrating the practice into more of those stressful situations,
Yes, that's right. So you don't make, as you said, you don't make a either or. It's like, oh, either my mind's quiet or it's or it's not. It's like, okay, even losing it, even being agitated, it's like, okay, well, just what if this was also just all part of it? What if there wasn't two things going on? Then where am I aware from? And then it's just like, oh, okay. So I'm not trying to get rid of anything. I'm just responding rather than reacting.
In your book, you shared about your experience with your back injury and the pain. I think that'd be nice to share with the listeners of how you can utilize these tools to really work with pain and create freedom from that pain. Can you share of your experience with that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, this is the interesting thing. I didn't include this in my first book because I want to make sure that it's, this is covering all pain, so
Right.
mental pain, emotional pain, existential pain, and physical pain. But this time, because I've seen how it works and people were emailing me, I read your book, and I wasn't even directly doing these pain exercises or protocols. But people saying my chronic pain went from an 8 to a 1, by just doing these exercises. I thought, well, let's, really show how this is a way to upgrade your whole consciousness, and it doesn't keep you in this small kind of body-mind box, that it really requires that you learn how to move your awareness around. So one of the things that is unique about this glimpsing method is what I call moving of local awareness to return it to spacious awareness, or kind of universal awareness. And then when you're in the spacious awareness, you actually use local awareness to focus rather than attention. So it's a little bit of a new thing to learn, but those who are interested, it's quite remarkable. You literally feel like you can, let's say you have pain in one of your hands from something like arthritis or something like that. So you've checked it out with a doctor. You know that you're doing all the treatments that you need, or for it, and yet there's still residual pain signals from the nerve endings being sent from your hand, like along a cord, to the operator in your head. And pain is basically a signal system that's very innocent, that's just like keeps sending the same phone call, like, check this out, check this out, check this out. You sure it's still happening? Now it's happening. This moment's happening. Check it out. And pain is meant to be strong and negative in order to get your attention. So if you're walking along the beach and you step on a glass or something, you're talking to your friend, you're having fun, it's supposed to say, immediately go to this area and, attend to it. So, so once it becomes chronic rather than useful, this method that I did when I had sciatica was I started to apply the same principles that I was using for more general awakening and mental and emotional suffering. I unhooked awareness from the operator in the thinker and had it drop down to be aware of my jaw from directly within my jaw, and then into my throat, directly from within my throat, and then down below my neck, and had the awareness, which is now the location of intelligence within the whole field of intelligence, go right to that area and literally look into the nerve cells and into the atoms in a feeling sense way, and realize there's no knife here. There's no danger here. It's okay. You don't have to keep calling. You can now send it to voicemail, and that awareness is here. And it's also now not just in your head, but all around your body. So the signal can go to your bigger consciousness, more spacious consciousness, and be, kind of holding this area which has some sensitivity to it in a knowing way that doesn't split off from it. So it just immediately felt like there was almost like the comfort of awareness, the intelligence of awareness that was knowing, oh, there's nothing here that needs to be continually looked at. I see what's here. I knew already there's nerve endings that are a little twisted that just can relax, and I know to be, conscious of them in certain situations, and then the pain signal system relaxes and upgrades to a bigger intelligence. It kind of goes to a bigger mind.
Yeah, can feel that even just with minor tension. Even doesn't even have to be acute pain, but just those little niggles and tension. It feels like even just the feedback of tension is really crying out for some attention, some awareness. And
that's right.
Yeah, that's really beautiful and so simple. We've all heard like the mind is a wonderful servant but a lousy master.
Yes,
Ramdas
right.
speaks of that a lot, and it feels like these glimpses really help us attain that more masterful usage of this mind body.
Yes.
Rather than the mind running the show. We can all right, wow. And you kind of, the way you talk about unhooking the mind and then placing it into other places of awareness, it really tangibly like, oh, wow, look at this tool of the mind and of the body, and I actually have a choice in where I put awareness. So it's so simple, but I think that simplicity can, in our highly distracted times, like how much consistency, how much effort do you feel is actually required, even though it's so simple and you can get what you're talking about in a moment?
Yes.
How much effort and consistency do you feel is required to actually apply these tools and glimpses?
Yeah, so it exactly. I think that's a good word, is kind of consistency or regularity, because it's like any old habit. It's just like an old habit that's really strong And it's innocently just saying, look, I got to keep you safe. I'm going to keep doing this until something changes. So in moments, you can start to glimpse, and then it's the willingness to kind of find your heart's desire that that's what you want to do, that it moves up your priority list to be able to do it a few times a day. It doesn't take a lot of time, but it does take, like any, develop any good habit. It's not easy because we kind of always say, well, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it later. So it's just starting to almost find the joy in it, like, oh, I want to do, oh, I get to do this. Oh, this is a good time to do this. Oh, I've got 5 minutes. Oh, this is perfect. This is, now I get to, do this thing, which finds the effortless mindfulness that feels blissful and relieves, kind of reboots the computer of your worry and mind and gives you a sense of support. So it does need consistency. And in terms of its stabilizing, I kind of see it as thinking of it as a developmental stage of, like, going from a young child through adolescence to young adulthood, or from young adulthood to middle age or something. It takes a few years to fully stabilize it, but all along the way there's just remarkable, like the bottom drops out and it's just like, this is amazing, and then the bottom drops out again and it's like, you got to be kidding me, this is 10 times as amazing as what I thought I was there. And then some old stuff comes up that hasn't been dealt with, and then I have a whole system in this book and in my life where I work with neuroscience and psychotherapy, but a kind of psychotherapy that's very consistent with awareness and open-heartedness as the essential self that is the healing agent for those parts of us that are most wounded. And so that becomes kind of part of the daily way of meeting it, so we don't have to escape into some kind of spiritual bypass.
Yeah, on that note, it'd be good to speak to some of the common traps on this path of exploring the heart and spirit and so forth. The traps that are so seductive and the common bypasses that are so easy to get stuck in. What do you feel are the most prevalent ones in today's age?
Yeah, I mean, I have a whole little funny section at the end of the book that's called Traps, Detours, and Rerouting Instructions. So I talk about kind of the one that people know about is the spiritual bypass. And then the other two I talk about is the cognitive overpass and the psychological underpass. So if you just try to think yourself out of it or use effort or will, you're going to skip over the whole embodiment piece. You're going to try to get out of your body into, kind of a philosophical or transcendent bypass by thinking you know it, or you can do it, or you can figure it out. So, there's a need for a surrender from that very smart, capable mind that's good at other things, but can't know yourself. That you really, really have to feel this non-conceptual, loving presence that you are, that then can think when you need to think. And it's that, that's very tough for many people who, are smart spiritual seekers, who've kind of, that they need to kind of not kill the ego, but like let go into the more embracing. And then the psychological work, having, seen a lot of people do psychological work, is that you can only kind of grow up and heal up to a certain level, and then you've got to wake up. So you can't just keep healing, trying to heal your trauma without the support of the essentially who you are, that is what's here for the healing. So to do all this together, rather than spiritually bypassing, cognitive overpass, or psychological underpass, to really, the unique thing is kind of go to the solution right away and directly experience for moments the awake consciousness that you have, that is a kind of loving self, that is a supportive, um, healing dimension, that you can then learn to familiarize. The Tibetan word for meditation is often translated as familiarize. So you're just familiarizing yourself, with your no self, with
Yeah.
this sense of being. So that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you. And then the growing up piece. So do you feel these practices and glimpses are enough to really fulfill, of course, the waking up, but then the bringing it back into cleaning up, showing up,
Yeah.
growing up? I mean, it feels like that to me. It is fulfilling that if people are consistent with it, but it's so seductive just to stay in the waking up, which is beautiful. Do you think that then fulfills the growing up, showing up, cleaning up, the whole picture?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, as you see in my book, I kind of include all of those pieces in a kind of way that weaves it together very, very well. My first book, I even talked about developmental psychology as well as psychotherapy. So, but this one, particularly just finding the self, which is self-aware of your parts. And your parts are parts not just that are wounded parts, but protective parts that can have self-centered agendas, that can be angry or rageful or mean, and realizing, oh, those are all parts of me, and actually there's no parts that are bad, but they literally can take me over and start speaking or running the show, and I just need to be conscious and take feedback from my colleagues and friends and community about what part I'm in, and then become self-aware and go like, oh wow, I can't believe I just said that. And then you realize, oh, and then you don't beat yourself up
Mm-hmm.
or constrain yourself to say, okay, I will never say anything in a strong, aggressive way again, or something like that. You just say like, wow, okay, well, what does this part want? It wants to be heard. It felt like it wasn't seen. So it was protecting this part that people were kind of glossing over, something that was actually about being compassionate, but it acted in a strong way, to say it, that wasn't compassionate. Okay, oh, that's what that is. So
Yeah.
there's a simple kind of full picture, of how the different levels of mind and different tools that we're so fortunate to have today, both from the wisdom traditions and modern science and psychotherapy and healing, that we can bring together. That's not, really complex. It's fairly simple,
Yeah.
but it takes some courage to apply
Totally.
it.
Yeah, I really, really love how accessible you have made it. I think it'd be good to bring in another glimpse in
Okay,
that more shadowy aspect. Can we shine a glimpse into those parts that maybe people have a blind spot to, which is hard to see if it is a true blind spot, but
Yeah.
those darker, more shadowy aspects that we often don't want to look at. Can we take a
Right.
glimpse into those parts of our experience?
Yeah, we could do that. Um, do we have time for two glimpses?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, plenty of
Okay.
time.
So let's do one. Let's do the first one, of just dropping from head to heart mind. So that one kind of gives us a little more, for those who are kind of internal types. It'll help you drop within to the subtlest dimension, and then for those who are, more open, expansive types, you'll feel that by going deep within to the subtle, you'll open up. But the main thing is also to kind of feel what I'm talking about when I say local awareness can move and change the center from the thought-based little mini me in the middle of our heads, behind our eyes. And the feeling is that the whole field, that our mind, our nature of mind, is all around and within. It's not just in our head. There's a kind of a connection to the universe that's awake and interconnected. And so we can be aware from anywhere, and particularly the meeting point that many masters and awakened gals and guys have talked about is being aware from the heart space or the heart mind. So this is a way to recognize that awareness is identified or attached to this feeling of me in our head. So you can just start almost in a kind of a natural way just to feel, where are you aware from? And then the premise is that awareness, which is both spacious and local, is attached or identified. And then feel as if awareness, as the kind of non-conceptual direct knowing, can simply unhook from thinking and step back into open space. And just notice that feeling immediately of more peace or relief. And then feel as if this kind of globe of awareness can then drop and feel your smile in your jaw directly from within your jaw. And then notice that awareness can move itself as it feels down into your throat. Just feel the space, the effervescent aliveness, and the awareness directly from within your throat. So just notice that you don't have to stretch attention down, and you don't have to look up to check with thought to feel that you're aware of your throat and know where you're knowing from is the same place. And then feel as if awareness can drop below your neck, kind of feeling into your upper body, knowing that feeling of sensation, effervescence, space, and awareness, as if you're feeling and knowing directly from the same area. If you're feeling your body from within, knowing what embodiment feels like. And then just find kind of a heart space or a safe place or a heart mind in the middle of your body, like an open door that opens behind your back and opens in front. And then just let this awareness go subtly within the atoms, within this heart space that you're directly knowing and then knowing from. So just feel that sense of awake space that's equally outside and within. It's equally simultaneously inside, feeling your body from toes to head from within, and from, notice the open heart or the open mind that's aware of the spacious awareness that's interconnected with everything and everyone. As if there's a boundless heart, connected heart mind, and a tender human heart. And just be aware from this heart as if you're looking out of the eyes of your heart. If your home and your heart and all information comes from the office of your head down to your home by Wi-Fi and from the universal consciousness. So just curiously see what it's like to let your phone number arise in your heart mind. And then let it go, and don't feel like you need to orient the thought to be. Just notice, what is this wordless awareness that's alert? What's that like? To be embodied and awake without orienting to thought. And notice you could think and you could do, but there's another dimension of knowing and being that's more primary.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nothing else to say, really, but let's keep talking anyway.
That's right.
Yeah, so beautiful into the core of our being, into the heart, and just so empowering to know that we can literally just unhook our attention, put it in your heart. You don't need to think. You've actually got a choice to think or not.
Yeah.
And let's be in love, you know?
Yeah, that's it. And you know, the amazing thing that is when you do that, and then you're coming from this more loving, open heart, you're also in kind of a flow state where you're actually able to optimally function. So it's not like you're going dumb or going numb. It's not that you're in a meditation state that's just like time out, and then you have to go back to work by going back to your ego center.
Back to reality.
Back to the other reality, the altered state. This is the new normal that actually you can actually be more intuitively, kind of continuously intuitive. You can function all the information of your conditioning or your job or language is poured into the field, so it's available. You don't have to just go up to the screen of the mind to access it. You learn to trust that it'll all come to you.
Yeah, I think there's a kind of middle ground, I can't quite find the word, but a place many people stop on the way to that feels excessively vulnerable. Like they've opened their awareness, they've opened their heart, but they're not quite fully in what you're speaking of, in which when they go out into the world, they feel overly vulnerable to the negative aspects of life. So it seems like there's an extra gear to shift to fully dive into what you're giving us the glimpse into, to fully trust, to fully pay attention to what's here, because it's not actually vulnerable in that typical way we think of vulnerability, is it? It's robust,
No.
it's strong, it's vital, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is this kind of unusual combination of vulnerable, but then safe and courageous.
Right.
You know, you kind of feel both more sensitive, but more invulnerable in that nothing can really hurt who you are, and you're able to respond if needed. And the other thing is, I think the halfway places sometimes are people drop into more their emotional heart than their heart mind.
Right.
So the heart mind is touching the emotional heart, but it's deeper and it's more vast, and it's not the same. It's kind of so you can get caught there. And the other thing is you can get caught a little too spaced out, a little too open, or, which feels a little dissociated or detached witness. And then you can also get caught. The third one is in your subtle body. So the deliberate mindfulness, you go to subtle mind, which is kind of a detached observer of contents. But then people who do chanting, yoga, shamanism, they often go to subtle body, subtle energy. And that is very perceptive and kind of blissy, but it's also kind of still within the battery of your body. So if you walk out like that, you kind of feel joyful, but then you're kind of taking everything on. So this is, one of the parts of this map that I help people navigate is you don't stop at subtle body or subtle mind, which these preliminary practices in spirituality take you to get you out of ego mind, to keep going to spacious awareness, but then don't stop there. Realize that's essentially who you are. And then from there, you realize that everything's made of awareness and energy. And you come back to this embodied, interconnected ground of being that feels safe and interconnected and is kind of dropped from head to heart mind. And so it's literally taking a lot of these, maps from wisdom traditions and making them more contemporary and simple, but they really cover all the ground. And so many practices will take you halfway there and kind of not understand how to come back home and just be ordinary.
Mm-hmm. Now, for just practical measures, like doubt and fear, like kind of doubt, fear, anxiety, they seem so real, and they can they grab the nervous system. They seem so real.
Yeah.
Can you? It might just be the same glimpse, really. It seems like that can really be the remedy for any of that daily stuff that tends to grab the mind. But speaking directly just to that kind of daily fight or flight type stuff, anxiety, fear, doubt, feeling small, feeling self-conscious in that kind of small mind, small ego way. Can you give a glimpse into how one can shift from the anxieties of just daily living that's not, of course, not bypassing it, not denying it, not pushing it under the rug, truly dealing with it.
Definitely. Yes. Yeah. So this is in this, short time we were together, we kind of did this unhooking and dropping inside. The other direction is to feel what we're feeling in our body, and then to feel like we can unblend or unhook and open to the space around that isn't just a mindful witness, but is literally this spacious awareness that when it turns back to that part that's anxious or doubting, you can be aware from there that this is a part of you and it's literally located somewhere in your body, in your throat, in your head, in your belly, or in half your body. And even if it's located kind of in all of your body, like adrenaline, you can realize, oh, well, my body is a part of me. And my body is anxious, and it's a little more anxious somewhere than else. You can be very particular. And so learning to kind of, again, unhook or detach or disidentify or unblend awareness, even when you're the tendency of operating system one is to contract. So we're like amoebas, that if you see like an amoeba, when a pin touches an amoeba, it contracts. Or like when we get cold or something, or we hear a loud sound, we kind of clench. And so that's what we do, both physically, mentally, emotionally. And so there's almost like a habit of being small, being separate, that we've learned to feel safer. And so if we feel doubting, we'll clench, and we'll feel mental, and we'll feel, oh no, this is, what he's saying is so good, but it's probably going to help everyone else. It probably won't help me. Like, I don't know, I've tried this. This sounds like it's probably above my head. I don't know. It's like I really got the feeling before, but now there's one word I didn't understand. So forget the whole thing, like, so it's like, but then what you do is you find that. Okay, so the key is that, the way we get lost is we think that we are our thoughts, feelings, sensations. We are the I thought. Oh, I'm not going to get this. I don't think I will. So all of a sudden, a part of us has taken the word I, and it's sitting in the seat of the self, looking out of our eyes, and it's the current occupant. But so the key is, can you unhook and realize that whatever the I is, it's a part of you that's going to come and go. Doubt will come and go, fear will come and go, but it's currently here, so we're not going to make it go away. So a lot of even deliberate mindfulness or other say, oh, well, that's just a thought, that's just a story, that's just a belief. Don't believe it. Just recognize that it's coming and going. But this way we open up and actually come back to say, well, how are you feeling? We really let the love and the capacity come back to the doubting mind and let it kind of unwind itself and unburden itself from its centrality of feeling like I'm all alone and I have to be you. And if I'm not, there's nobody here. And it's like, well, I'm here. And I said, yeah, but nobody ever listens to me. That's why I doubt it's going to, well, okay, I'm here, I'm listening. So it literally becomes this energetic, awake psychotherapy that you're doing with yourself, or you can have somebody else kind of play the part, a friend or somebody who does this kind of work. So it's this feeling of unhooking and recognizing the spacious awareness, and then coming back to really locate that you're not a solid separate self, that there's a part of you that is, and it's allowed to have any feeling it wants. And there's nothing wrong with how it feels. And yet you don't have to kind of zap it away with emptiness of spiritual sword, that you literally can be loving like you would with a child. And it will be like, well, I'm too tired, I'm not tired, I'm not going to bed, I'm tired, I'm not going to bed, I'm tired, I'm not tired, I'm not tired, I'm not going to bed, I'm not going to bed, not going to bed. And it'll just wait it out,
Totally.
Stay with it.
You love it enough, and it'll go to
and it'll
sleep.
show itself, and it'll tell you what it's, and it'll start to be part of the team.
Yeah.
And then it won't have to be that doubting. It'll kind of go, well, what about this? It'll be like, well, that's a good question. Yeah, okay. Well, we could. And I said, see, I have some good questions. Yeah, you do. But try this. Oh, yeah. So it will get the experience. So it gets it's been looking for the same love too, all these parts. And that's what we start to learn how to do.
Yeah, I recall you speaking about that situation. I think you were using the metaphor of that loving awareness that you're speaking of, being like a really wise, old, beautiful, loving grandma, looking at kids being little shits, and they're being mean little kids, and that wise old grandma's she just gets it. She just loves on them and gets that that's a part of being human, a part of a mode. And then it's so effective in shifting it. I mean, most of the advice in these traditions, these world traditions, seems to be that of, don't obey the doubt, don't believe it, and it will subside. But it seems very temporary. It might subside for a while, but it doesn't seem to heal it or bring any deep healing or breakthrough. But this seems to be really profound in actually creating deep healing.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, this just to let your listeners know that, I mean, this is work that myself and other colleagues do with people with complex trauma who are like inpatient, So, interestingly, this tradition of this kind of direct practice awakening in the classical wisdom tradition is like, well, it's only for the elite, Olympic athletes of meditation that you have to do all these things. And, most people are wet wood and you need to be dry wood. But there's only a few that are, and it's like, no, it's for everyone because everyone's got it. And not only that, it's what the people who would be least likely to think to be advanced meditators, those who are suffering the most, can access. And it's what they need to access. So let's give the jewel away. Let's teach everyone how to access. It's really more about the teaching than the student. That's the problem. The students, if they get the right instructions and that match their conditions, I haven't seen it not open up for people. But so to say that, when somebody in severe trauma can access this loving self, it's what I've seen people make tremendous progress in a short amount of time.
Amazing. In the last section of your book, you speak of something that's quite interesting, the trap of stopping at not knowing. I'd love for you to elaborate on that, because I don't think I've ever heard that being spoke to quite like you brought attention to, but I think it's actually helpful. The trap of stopping at not knowing and going beyond not knowing.
Yes. Yeah. So, it's kind of in line with some of those other traps about getting caught in the emotional heart and kind of getting caught in being spaced out. So the not knowing is kind of the first move from conceptual knowing or ego identity to just stop, by doing sitting meditation, or any technique takes you into your body, chanting, mantra, or inquiry, where you feel this gap. Okay, you're not in the conceptual knowing, you're in this kind of non-thought peace, not knowing, don't know mind. But then from here, your only option, if you're going to know or do, is to come back to the conceptual knowing, because from not knowing, you're just having a rest. You're doing sauna meditation or something. It's relaxing and it's stress relieving. So what I say is you need to find the not knowing that knows. So you go to the space, and awareness knows space, and then awareness discovers, oh, the space is aware. And it's always been aware, and it's aware without my help. And it's alert. Oh, and it's also embodied. And I'm not doing it, but it's not non-conceptual. It's actually wisdom, and I have a potential to know anything. But it has a feel to it. The feeling between not knowing and discovering awake awareness, which is like not knowing in that it's non-conceptual, it's not using thought, but it has this embracing, alert, curious, kind of childlike, whoa, this is cool. Like, what are we going to do today? This is going to be great. It's got this potential to know that feels, inherent in everything, innate. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think that's really helpful too.
Yeah, because you can, those meditation states, one of my teachers, Sokni Rinpoche, who's Toku Urgen's son, said when he first came to the United States, he said, everyone here is doing stupid meditation. So what he meant by that was just stopping your mind, just doing shamatha. So you just go into shamatha, peaceful abiding, calm abiding, don't know mind, which is more of a Zen first stage. And it's peaceful, but you're going to have to engage once you get off the cushion, it's not productive. It's a meditation state that requires you go back to conceptual thought, whereas coming to not knowing that knows, that's embodied and open-hearted, now you're operating from heart mind, and you can begin to see through the eyes of love this kind of like you're resting at home and information's poured back, and you don't need to look at the screen of your mind, but you can kind of intuitively respond. And once you learn to get into that flow, it's just it's remarkable. It's a different way of being.
For sure. Beautiful. Let's gradually wrap this up, but I'd love to end with a quote I found on your website, which I think will be a great place to leave it off, and then maybe one more glimpse to just drop people right in, and then we'll sign off. But the quote is, "When we see the same inner light of awareness in another's eye, a person that is not from our neighborhood, tribe, or culture, then we have the first glimmer of hope for peace on earth," which I just love. I mean, there's so much divide right now, and I mean, between political ideologies, spiritual ideologies, just so much divide, which is so incredibly inflamed right now. And it's so beautiful that these teachings are so readily available to help people go beyond that divide, you know? And I mean, Ram Dass has one of these practices, which I'm sure you're aware of putting Trump on his puja table. And that's one of his techniques of kind of going beyond the divide, doing his bit of spreading loving awareness, like to someone that feels so separate and so triggery and just that he doesn't like, essentially. And it's a practice of bringing loving awareness to Trump. So, like, can you leave off with a practice, a glimpse to help people in these current times of divide to really generate that vitality we've been speaking of, that love, that strength, that flow? To really help us do our part in coming into a deeper harmony in the world, you know?
Because that's the goal. Again, it's this, living a full human life is the goal. And so here we are in these times and this age, and the idea is to first find that which is capable of bearing what's unbearable, and finding that heart's desire, so that motivation for change and for dialogue and for social action comes from a different place that's not fear and hatred, that's from a loving, compassionate, but really courageous, like a lion, willing to step up and speak from the heart, and recognize that we all have the same parts in us, shame-based parts, fearful parts, ignorant parts, so that we can, when we're speaking, we can try to bring some true knowing from something that's greater than our own attempt to fix something. So I won't do this one now, but I'll mention my version of Ram Dass's, because it's pretty intense. And then we'll do another one. So my version is that you find the part in you that hates that Trump is a hater. And so you find the part, so I don't quite say that is the same, but I just say that what is it that you don't like about Trump? Well, he hates people. He's like okay, well, how do you feel about that? I hate that. I hate that he's hating. Okay, good. That makes perfect sense to me. Now let's see if you can feel that part of you. And first you have to set it up so you really feel it, then shift into the spacious awareness, then come back. And usually in a group, this one really cooks, because it brings a lot of grief. It brings a lot of childhood fear in it. And this kind of what I call shake and bake in a group happens, where people kind of start to, release some held feelings of, vulnerability and terror and rage, and so, but it's quite it brings like all the vibration of that world into release, as a way to kind of release it and unburden it. But certainly the dropping from head to heart, mind, and then starting to begin to feel, okay, what action, what one activity can I do this week? What one, just be curious, don't even look, but just like, how can I be of service? What's a way that I could go a little beyond my growing edge to feel like I could contribute in a way that my unique skill set and my humanity is good at? That some people are good at this, they're good speakers. Some people, are good at going door to door and registering people to vote. Some people, so you just figure out what your little, way of reaching out and from this new motivation, and then it starts to kind of flower because where you're doing it from, people start resonating from that, and they get all inspired, and you're like, I'm not inspired, I didn't say anything. I know, but it's like so much fun what we're doing. We're having, we're like, I feel so much more hopeful now.
Yeah.
Because you're just taking one little action from this open-hearted presence, and it becomes a guide. So yeah. So does that sound like a?
No, totally. It's beautiful. So again, so simple, so practical, yet ever endlessly expansive, where we can take that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so I would say, because you've got to find the difference between spiritual ego and relative initial practices, and glimpsing and really finding the heart mind instead of the emotional heart. So, I just encourage people, to go through the book, or I have some audios or YouTubes, and get a feeling for yourself of what this is, to give it a try if you're enticed to do it, because it's all right here. And sometimes I encourage people with the written practices to read it in your own voice into a phone and make a recording, so you hear your own voice at your own pace.
That's great advice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. I'm probably going to try that as well. I mean, I've read it.
Yeah.
It's a book that I think it's a practice book as well. It's experiential. So I think it's worth reading it several times. Like the first time, just kind of, in a way, getting your head around the concept of it, which for some people might be new. And then the second, you can really grok with it and experience it. And then maybe the third time, doing what you're saying, get it in your own voice and really become one with it, because they're really chewy and just awesome to put the rubber to the road, so to speak, and I just really get working with it, and I just love it. So I love what you're doing, and you've got heaps of content online as well, and I'll leave links to it all below. So thank you for your time, Loch. It's been a real delight. Yeah.
Yes, I hope to come to Australia someday and meet you.
Yeah, likewise. I'd love to connect in person. Well, much love, Loch. Until next time.
All right.
Yeah.
Love to you,
Take
Stuart.
care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.